basically, when I did the story on Monday saying they put him up for sale as part of the sort of cultural reboot of the club, you know, like in other words, he doesn't fit with sort of his attitude or whatever. I was told from very high up in the club that time to cut the losses on this guy, you know what I mean, on this player. Like in terms of they'll do a cup price deal, however that might be, in terms of the actual transfer fee or the wages that we're talking about or whatever, a loan, just to basically be rid of him.
Jay here, Stretford Paddock. This is Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport. Joining me is a special guest from The Guardian, Mr. Jamie Jackson, who's been on this channel many, many times over the years. How are we going? How's it going, I should say?
Never been better. I am brimming with Yuletide cheer.
Yes. Yeah, I am. Do you know what? I was a bit disappointed at you, Jay, because I thought you'd turn up in a big Christmas jumper. I know you're quite colourful. But you've got a little bit...
This is like anti-Christmas colours shirt.
Yeah.
Just to sort of like be a bit different.
All right, well, you are, yeah. That's safe to say.
I can't believe you're questioning my clothes.
Listen, I would never question Jamie Jackson's attire. Let's pull that out there. You've just come from the Manchester City press conference. We'll get into that a little bit later because we'll ask you a little bit about Pep Guardiola and what's going on in the blue quarter of Manchester. But we'll start at Manchester United. Obviously, the game against Spurs midweek, out of the Carabao Cup. There's a lot to unpick from all of this, but we'll start with the obvious topic that keeps coming up and going on and on and on. Marcus Rashford wasn't in the squad again. I know Ruben Amorim's been asked about it. He says it's not disciplinary, it's tactical, if you will.
Yeah, selection.
It's a selection. Yeah. What have you made of what's gone on and the way Ruben Amorim's handling it?
Yeah, I think he's handling it right. I don't think there's any way back really, unless Rashford sort of like goes to him personally, privately, and says, "Look, I've made a massive mistake. I shouldn't have sort of said that to Henry Winter. Fair play to Henry Winter, you know, that basically wants to leave." I mean, yeah, especially after you've just won a great derby victory. What is interesting, right, is if you rewind back to the Everton game, which I think you beat 4-0 and he scored twice and Xerxes did, he then got dropped for the next two Premier League games, which was Arsenal away, which he lost, and Forest at home. And after the Forest one, I asked him, what happened to Marcus? You know, he scored twice, and then the next thing you know, you haven't played him. And he said that it was a selection thing, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is I think something must have happened after that Everton game, because he scored 3 then in however many games it was, 4, 3, was it? Or something, because he scored in the opener. I mean, this has been going on a bit, you know, with Rashford for years. Ranić sort of said if he wants more game time, maybe he'll have to leave. If you remember in that season when I think they were dallying with PSG. Listen, we don't know what's going on. I was thinking about this today, but all we have is the facts, and the facts that, as Rashford also presents them, you know, in the interview. And I have to say, how far's Wivenshaw from Old Trafford? 4 miles, 3 miles? It's nothing, right? No, it's literally round the corner. So he has grown up loving that club, supporting it, has all the tools to be an amazing player for Manchester United, his first choice, all the rest of it, and it's gone wrong. And as someone at the club said to me, there's a feeling of sadness about it, because for whatever the reasons are, because I do feel maybe he's not being greatly advised, or maybe there is something in his private or personal life that we don't know about. I just feel it's a shame, because, you know, my son's a United fan. He would, like I'm sure all United fans would give whatever to play for this sort of football team. But, you know, anyone who leaves United, really, unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo, it's always downhill, isn't it? Let's be honest. Where's he going to go? I mean, you tell me. Is it Saudi? Because I don't see... He's on, just to be clear about it, he's on 365 a week, right? I know that because when I did the story, ran it by the club, there's no argument, right? Which puts him slightly ahead of Casemiro as the highest paid player, right? It's about 360. So that means that, say, last season when you win the Champions League, they get a 25% bonus for being in the Champions League. So he was on the best part of 425 or whatever it is, right? Because it's a fifth for that. So he's highly remunerated, you know, in terms of his pay. And that's going to be difficult, because who's going to pick that up? Now, I wonder if there's going to be a 70 or 8%, 80% wage thing alone, where United still pay 70 or 8%, and the club that he's going to, because that's the only, you know, will pick up the rest of the wages, because I don't see it. So who picks him up? You think that the sort of the way forward with this might be United paying a chunk of his wage, a massive chunk, yeah. Would that be as part of? Forgive me, this. That's all right. I don't know. Stupid question. No, I'm going to ask it anyway, just to sort of clarify it. So would that be as a permanent transfer, but United still pay off his wages, or? Well, this is interesting. I was thinking, in terms of him leaving January, it's going to be a loan, a bit like in terms of for the end of the season, Sancho to Dortmund last year, or Sancho to Chelsea for the whole season. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like Alexis Sanchez when he went to Inter, wasn't it? I think United paid off a big chunk of his wages, because Inter couldn't afford to pay him what he was on here. I mean, we could have a debate now about what he's worth in the market in terms of a fee. He's got, like, I think it's 3 years left, or the best part of 3 years. Let's say it's, and I think this is being optimistic, let's say it's 55 mil. Maybe they just sort of... Basically, when I did the story on Monday saying they put him up for sale as part of the sort of cultural reboot of the club, like in other words, he doesn't fit with sort of his attitude or whatever. I was told from very high up in the club that time to cut the losses on this guy, you know what I mean, on this player. Like in terms of they'll do a cup price deal, however that might be, in terms of the actual transfer fee or the wages that we're talking about or whatever, a loan, just to basically be rid of him.
So we could end up with a scenario. I know it's for completely different reasons, so I'm not saying it's the same thing before anyone misconstrues what I'm trying to say. But similar to Mason Greenwood left for a lot less than Mason Greenwood should have left for.
Jay.
And we know why. So, and again, I want to reiterate it because I don't want people comparing the two because it's completely different.
Yeah.
But we know that we took a bit of a hit, or United took a bit of a hit.
Was it 25 you went for?
Which this is a player that at one point you thought he's going to go for 100 million because he's a goal scorer. He's naturally gifted in terms of his football.
He was rated the best player in the club.
Yeah.
When at his peak. You know
I remember me and you talking about it a few years ago.
Far better than Rashford, for example.
Yeah, and the everyone who's watched at the academy was saying this kid is genuinely one of the best players we've had come through the academy. Obviously we know that what happened there, but United were like, we need to get money for get him out of the club, and obviously you want to get something for him, and you feel that's a similar
So I wonder whether, I don't know, it's slight guesswork, but let's say he's worth 55 now. If you know, if there wasn't this sort of, if it wasn't the massive wage and you could just sell him, and you know, I feel like he might go for 30, 35, and then I don't know what happened about that wage because that's a massive wage. I mean,
I don't want to get you bogged down in the sort of financial aspects, but obviously you've done your own work as you always do on this. So if he went for say 35 million, would United pay some of his wage? I wouldn't
be surprised. I'd not. It depends who it is, obviously, and that's why I mentioned Saudi Arabia before, because they obviously seem to have a lot of money. They're interested in him, but it's whether he wants to go there at 27. Let's see what happens with Ivan Toney, for example, and Tuchel if he recalls it or he selects him, having played over there. But I look at him and I think any serious club who's at the top end of one of the sort of top 3 or 4 leagues in Europe, I'm talking like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus, unless they can get him. I mean, there is an argument that maybe Barcelona need in that area of the team.
There were rumours, weren't there?
But would you? It just seems. He's got all the tools, but you look at his figures. I know he's not a number 9 by so he's not like supposed to be the goal scorer. So he's gone 17 and 17 in the Premier League twice, and 10 and 11 goals in the. So he's done 4 double-figure seasons, but 2 of those were just over into double figures. That I just wonder who would take him if he was on a sort of more reasonable wage. Yeah, it would be an easy deal to do, and United would be in the. But the issue they've got here, and I think this is kind of why he's saying it's a selection thing rather than disciplinary thing, because they're still they've got to balance up. Yeah, we don't want him around the squad. Amorim doesn't want him around the squad. The hierarchy, whatever, don't want him around the squad. He's still an asset of some sort. And so, that's why I sort of mentioned at the top of this conversation, unless there is a massive, he wakes up and thinks, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing? This is Manchester United. I mean, the other day when he said, I'm a Red and I'll always be a Red, I'm thinking, I know you are, but something's seriously gone wrong here. And listen, there might be some thing at the club end which is causing this as well. I just don't know. I'm not Marcus Rashford, but I just don't. He scores 2 goals against Everton. He's kind of flying, really, and then he gets dropped. Something's happened there.
Yeah, you said there about the hierarchy, or Ruben Amorim don't want him around the squad. What makes you say that? Is that something you've been told that you
well, Amorim's decision to drop him is fully supported, and for he would not be for sale if Amorim did not want him out. Yeah, and that has to be supported by the sporting director. Right. I know you don't have one at the moment because he got basically offed. But yeah, that has to. He can't. Amorim, what sort of United, City, you name it, any club really, when it comes to a player, especially of that stature, what he's worth commercially, not just in terms of, not just the on-field stuff, what is image rights, all the rest of it. Sure, he can drop him from a squad, that's no big deal. But if he says to them, look, I've decided I think it might be best for the team if this guy leaves, it has to be green lit by the rest of them. Yeah. And what's happened in the past, and this is what's interesting, the story I did on Monday was, I'm not talking about Rashford here specifically, but I was told that the feeling amongst Ratcliffe, Brailsford, Wilcox, Barada, having looked at the club and done due diligence on what's happened in the past, is previous managers have tried to do reforms of culture, but they weren't supported basically but the club wasn't, the hierarchy wasn't aligned. In other words, the Glazers were sort of a little bit more, disinterested, or actually we don't want to sell this player because he's worth this.
We heard that. I think you mentioned it, especially under Jose. Yeah, I think there was.
Well, Jose, for example, wanted. Let me just get this right. He wanted Martial out.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
But Woodward wasn't necessarily keen on that, and you can make your own sort of. So that's what I'm saying about this decision on Rashford is a club. Top to bottom. How you want to subscribe it?
So the coach, the sporting director, or
100%.
whatever. Yeah. Forgive me.
Ratcliffe basically, and this has become clear to me now in the report and what's happened since he's come in. Ratcliffe basically is your chief executive, your sporting director, or rest of it. Of course, he'll take advice, but he's the one who makes, who signs it all off. It's not like, for example, this Rashford thing. It wasn't Barada who had to agree to it. Basically Ratcliffe.
Ratcliffe said.
Yeah, Ashworth leaving Ratcliffe. You know what I mean?
So do you feel that the Rashford thing has come from the manager? The manager's saying, look,
100%.
There's something I can't work with him, or he's not my guy, or whatever, or he's not applying himself in training, whatever it may be. Yeah. And then Ratcliffe says, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Not Ratcliffe going, we want to get him out of the door. And the manager going, all right.
Because one thing they're clear on, from what I'm told, is they're not experts in football, and they're not there. But what they're about is what they think is best for the club in the long run. And just mention Ashworth. That's why that was taken. I was told to me, look, this does look silly from the outside. We waited for the gardening leave for Newcastle United.
It looks ridiculous.
Yeah, okay, but the thinking is short-term pain for sort of what the belief is in the long run. It's the best for the club. Now let's wait and see. So that's the thing. But I think Amorim. Even before this became clear, there was a couple of things in press conference where, he was sort of saying basically what other people have said. Ten Hag, Rangnick in the past about Rashford. He has to want it in essence.
Yeah, he did. He said that. He said that. Yeah.
Amorim so far. Listen, it's always easy when it's a new manager, it's a little bit feel good, and you sort of, to sort of say this guy looks like he knows what he's doing. But I do think this is an interesting call, and. Yeah, I mean, how to say this? There were rumblings last. I was going to say there's rumblings last season. Well, before Amorim came in. I mean, you remember the Belfast incident? Yeah, there was that. I'd forgotten this, but I think it was last New Year's Eve. You played Wolves, and he was left out because he'd overslept. Do you remember that? I don't know if it was it's certainly under Ten Hag.
Yeah.
There was a thing when you lost the derby to City, and it was his birthday.
And he went out.
Yeah, was it Wings maybe in town? I can't remember. So there's 2 or 3 things on the record, right? And I don't know for a fact that there might have been other stuff which hasn't been published or whatever that they weren't particularly happy about. So I think it's been going on for a little while. I don't know this for sure, right? But it wouldn't surprise me if coming into this job, when they discussed with Amorim, what's the sort of like big issues? It might be to do with Marcus Rashford, and so obviously it's up to you. But just so we've sort of looked into this. This is what's happened in the past. The things that I just mentioned on the record. Yeah. It's something that you need to be aware of, possibly. I mean, that's just a guess, but I can't believe. I mean, how long's he been there? 2 months ish.
Amorim, yes.
It's November international break. Well, maybe a month on him, but a little bit longer maybe. I can't believe he came in and the first he realised about, Rashford's maybe not going to be the best for where I want to take the team is, when he went to New York, didn't he, in that international break. But even that wasn't against the rules. But you've got Cristiano Ronaldo staying behind after training and getting the absolute whatever out of an unbelievable talent. I'm not saying Rashford doesn't do extra training, but then you've got that sort of thing. And if it's just one thing, the New York thing, who cares? But if it's part of a jigsaw, part of a picture. I mean, so it is a shame. It's it's massive. I mentioned my son before. My son's son is 30. He's a massive United fan. He's gutted. He doesn't want him to leave because he loves him. You know what I mean? And that's like the same.
I can understand that. I think it's almost. You get criticised and get grief if you stick up for Marcus Rashford or even say something like we've said, I hope he turns it around and people are on your case saying, oh, Rashford PR. I think it's probably gone too far now. I don't see it.
I would love to see him turn it around. I'd love it. It'd be a great story because when he's good, he's amazing. Yeah, he is. But
I agree.
There's too many ifs, buts.
I couldn't agree more. That is the problem.
And I think Amorim is thinking, wait a minute, have I got any chance of sorting this out? I can't read stuff like this, which is like borderline, which I'm not too sure of. I think it's just better to sort of like,
Yeah. Do you think United can learn lessons from this? Because I look at Kobe Mainoo.
Yeah.
I look at Garnacho, who's going through some stuff at the minute. You've got other players who are coming through the academy. We've got Chido Obi-Martin, or Chido Obi, I should say, as he's been named now.
Yeah.
You've got other players as well. You've got Hamas. You've got,
See, what's interesting about the lessons learned, right? And you would know far more about this than me, because it was kind of basic before my time covering United. I basically did the last season and a half of Ferguson, right, before he retired. But someone said to me, the difference now is under Ferguson, maybe Rashford would be flying consistently because he used to have like a whole support network, whereas maybe that's fallen away from your club. And so now someone like Rashford or any of those players you mentioned, they've got their agents, and that's the support system. You sort of, to a certain extent, it's a bit of an unknown quantity. Now that's not necessarily the player's fault, that's the way the game's gone, but in terms of lessons learned, I wonder if the club might look at, is there a way of sort of like, Ferguson was very good. I mean, as I say, you know better than me, but just look at the results, you can tell.
You were covering it as well, and I was just looking at it. I mean, I did, cover it slightly as a journalist, but not as much as you did. But that's my big concern now, is we learn from this. And we look after, if that's the right term, or make sure this other young players who are coming through don't head the same way Marcus. Because if Marcus does leave in the summer, and from what you've reported, it looks very likely, or maybe even in January, there'll be a massive amount of regret for me. A player who burst onto the scene with all those goals, the goals against Arsenal, I was there at his debut in Midtjylland, the winner at the Etihad, who at times, has it, those 30 goal season, 20 plus goals in a couple of seasons. And at 27 he's out the door. It is saddening, and again, I know it's for different reasons, but I always go back to that picture of Martial, Rashford and Greenwood a few years ago, and I thought we were set for the next 5-6 years minimum, when you had three players that had hit 75 goals between them that season, whatever it was. And you go forward 3 or 4 years, and it looks like all three of them have gone.
We're pleased that once again, Off the Bar is brought to you by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game.
There's loads of football over the festive period, and every single televised Manchester United game will be on at your local Green King Sport pub. So get your mates and head down.
If you use the Green King Sport app, you'll get 10% off your drinks for the entire game. And if you've never downloaded the app before, now's your time, because if you download the app, you'll get a free pint.
We've linked the app in the description, so go and check it out, and a big thank you to Green King Sport.
I'll move on, because I'm sure you're fed up of reporting in it and talking about Marcus Rashford, but you've obviously been right at the front of it, so it was important to get your thoughts on it. What did you make of what Ruben Amorim did against Spurs, and the way he handled it as well? Because he was sort of focused. He said afterwards, didn't he? And I'm paraphrasing that, it's not just about the trophies and trying to win trophies. He says long term, obviously, it's not this season. It's about going for the Premier League title. We've heard that before, sort of, from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Arteta has said similar-ish things. What did you make of that?
Right, well, so I'm sat at home. It's a away game with my son who supports me. I was really surprised at the selection. I've got some of it, because I get that it's about rotation, and that team wasn't a complete change. There was some A-listers or first choice in there, but I was just very surprised he didn't go for it, because you're 2 games away from the final. Dear me. And this whole thing about trophies is not going to completely change around our fortunes. No, it's not. It's going to help, because apart from anything else, when as he said, the storm comes of a seriously bad run, which may well happen, if he's got that trophy in the bag, it's kind of Teflon.
Yeah,
of course it does. The players as well are happy. They've won something.
Yeah, Ten Hag had it, didn't it? After the Carabao Cup final. Had some horrendous results. Absolutely horrible results that we don't need to go into, Jamie, because it'll depress me ahead of Christmas. But that trophy buys you a bit, and it did for...
No one can argue with that. That's a fact. There it is. Tough.
Yeah, it did for Ollie as well, didn't it? Not winning that trophy, I think, when the storm came,
killed him.
The 5-0 against those who shall not be named, and then losing to City not long after.
And then the Watford game,
it was like...
Yeah, so I mean, I thought that selection was suspect, and if you're going to, I just couldn't believe it, to be honest. I was really surprised. You've just beaten City at their place. Wow, what a result! Totally deserved it. Basically, doing to City what City do to teams, including United, which is be sharper, more hungry. Armad basically, Diallo. And then you go there and you sort of almost not give it up. And part of his calculation is also, well, Spurs are going to do kind of the same thing, but. I hate to say he's there, but Guardiola never treats a different competition as different, because he understands that winning is the best pick-me-up and the best. So I was pretty disappointed.
Do you know what I will say on that, though? And I think you're right. I think Guardiola had to learn that, though, because if you cast your minds back, was it the Jose and Guardiola's first season at the two Manchester clubs, we knocked City out of the League Cup. Do you remember?
At your place, I think it was. Yeah, I remember it.
And we played a strong team, and he played a lot of these kids.
Okay, did it right.
Yeah,
okay.
Because the only reason I remember this, well, I remember it clearly anyway, because it's not like we beat City all the time. Whenever we do, I remember it. But I was at the press conference when United had won the Carabao that season.
Yes.
At the Etihad, I was at the press conference at the wherever it's held, the stadium nearby. I forget the name of it.
Yes.
The CFA, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he was asked about it.
Yeah.
Again, he was asked like, United have just won the Carabao Cup.
Right.
Do you regret not going for that when you played them? Like,
Yeah.
I'm saying because they've got.
Yeah,
I think you might have been you asking the question. You like to poke the bear now and again, don't you? And it was like, and he got a bit aggy, Pep. It was a bit like because United have got Josie's got a trophy now. You hadn't. That and obviously more than made up for it. But after that, he seemed to say, I don't know if that mattered to him or not, that particular point, but he definitely took it more seriously. And if you look at City's record, they won it the next 4 times. They won the trophy.
100%. And look at who has won that trophy over the last whatever. It's always United, a couple of times, City.
Chelsea used to like it, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Jose, when he was at Chelsea, I think, won it.
Yeah, so going back to Amorim, I was actually really surprised in that. And, Lindelof gets injured anyway. He's not a first choice. He brings him to sort of rest players. He gets injured. And poor old Mason. No, not Mason. Mason Mount was on Sunday, wasn't he? But he then sort of brings on Garnacho towards the end of the game. I just thought he might have started Garnacho, to be honest, because he hadn't played in the derby and he's a frontline player. So I thought, in my humble opinion, I'm not the manager of Manchester United. I'm not a coach, but I thought he made a mistake.
You're allowed to say. I mean, you're a journalist who's reporting on it. It's not MUTV. We're not. I love Ruben Amorim, but you can question some decisions, or you can like.
I thought he made a massive mistake.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a shame that we've not, because it.
You're the fan, especially that Spurs team, which basically, once you got amongst it, they've set the ball
I get your point. You know what annoys me more?
Yeah.
Is the nature of that defeat, because I think we could have had our cake and eaten it. I think he could have rotated the way he did, and we still could have won that game.
Well be right.
Because that game was still there for the taking, but there were so many silly mistakes. And players that, I mean, obviously Bayern Days had a bit of a stinker, but I get giving him a game in that. Because I think, that's not that deep, and I actually thought he was all right. I thought he was a good keeper going in that game. I'm not saying he's not a good keeper, but he obviously didn't have a good game. Martinez is a good player who I love.
He's got ghosted in.
Yeah.
Who was it scored the goal? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at, when that starting 11 was named, I didn't look at Martinez as being a weak link.
Of course not.
I'm not saying he is, but he was at fault for at least, probably 2 of the goals.
Yeah.
So
not having a great season, is he?
Not really. And we've spoken about this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's done or he's not a good player or any of that. But you've got to be honest, he's not having a great spell of it. So I do sort of sympathise a little bit with Ruben Amorim, because I think we could have still won that game, even when he brought Diallo on and we got back to 3-2. I know Forster did his best to help us. But even then, I honestly, the 70th minute when we scored that second, I thought we'd win.
No, I did as well.
I thought we'll win this now. And then we didn't have another shot on target for 15 minutes.
I didn't realise there was no VAR in this competition, because Bayern Day might have had a case, right?
I think, and this is where
furious.
This is where it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, and this is the weird sort of foibles of VAR. I don't think it's a foul, but I think he'd have got it with VAR.
Right, okay.
Because I think there's contact, and that would have been enough for VAR to go.
Okay.
I just don't think it was enough to put him off. I think he should have been stronger.
Yeah, he should have just come and got the player at the ball.
I think he's just
cleaned everyone out.
He's misjudged it.
Should have just gone like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
he's got. I think he's just misjudged it completely. And then
very fair and balanced from you.
Well, I'll try to stop that, because we don't want fair balanced opinions on here, Jamie. That's the last thing we need. Ruben Amorim now, obviously, he's mentioned the league as a long term. Well, he didn't say. I mean, he said we want to win the title. He didn't mean this season. I think that's already mathematically impossible, which is an achievement in itself in December. The United way. But do you longer term? I know it's only early days. You've been in his presence. You've seen what he's trying to do. Do you think he's got the capabilities, as well as not just him, but with Ineos there as well? Do you think there's a machine there?
Well, I think you look at the Rashford decision, you look at the Ashworth decision in terms of Ineos specifically, and I think they might both backfire, but I think they're doing that. I think it's harder to do both these decisions. I mean, basically to say to Dan Ashworth, sorry, we're mutually consenting you out of the club, but basically you're gone after 5 months. It says to me that they are serious, because it makes them look silly, and there's an acceptance, as I say, the boardroom that they look ridiculous. So I think they are. I think the Rashford thing, supporting Amorim over this, I think is a good. If you're a supporter, you should look at that as a good sign, because at least they're trying to do the right things. But and so to go to Amorim. I think I think United have played a little bit more possession stuff actually, which is interesting. You've been counter-attacking team, haven't you? But yesterday I was noticing it, the derby, and there's other games as well. You're knocking it. Even I know it's only 20 minutes, but the start at Arsenal I was impressed with. Yeah, I thought okay, they're sort of bossing this away from home, and that's very early doors. So it's very difficult to say. I think what has Amorim got that Ten Hag hasn't? I do think you need this. Ten Hag was smart, and he wasn't as sort of non-charismatic, if I could put it that way, as he appeared publicly if you're watching it. Because obviously, if I'm sat in that room with him, as I was all the time, at Carrington or wherever, you pick up stuff. So, but Amorim does have a lot more obvious charisma, and I think the reason why I say that's important is not to do with the media necessarily, but to do with the players. I think he will carry players a long way with that, because I think he's got a very interesting way of dealing with issues. I mean, even the way he answered the Rashford thing was actually hilarious. But then the first press conference, I think he's right. He does need a new experience. It's here. I mean, he said that with a straight face. Obviously, that's not what Rashford meant. He meant away, but the way in which they'll have discussed that, maybe him and Andrew Ward, the head of media, or whoever. How we're going to deal with this. But just the way, it'll carry you. I think it really helps. I think all the very best have their own charisma, however it might manifest itself. Mourinho, you mentioned Guardiola, Klopp, Arne Slot. I could go through them all. Tactically, I've been round the block so many times with replacement, post Ferguson managers, where I thought, this guy's got, he's got something. So let's wait and see. This Spurs thing, I've got to say, really, what are you doing? So, I'm very, very surprised by that. I mean,
maybe that's won't get carried away, but that's something he can learn himself. Like he is new.
My door is always open. Yeah, just come round to my house. But I'm not cheap, but I'm not expensive.
Do you remember that first season with Pep? You never know. That's it. I keep going back to that first season with Pep because I remember him losing 4-0 at Goodison. You remember it, the getting knocked out of the cup and stuff like that, where you think, really, but he was sort of seeing who he could. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
and there could be an element of that because 100%. This manager's come in.
And that's why no, you're right. That's why I need to see time. It'll be very interesting, as it always is with United. There's summer transfer market, what he does, how they pull it off, with the Ineos thing. Whether they replace Ashworth, I wouldn't be surprised if Wilcox just takes over his job. He was now the technical director.
I think a few people have suggested that as well. Can I just ask you something?
Yeah.
Right. I remember you writing an article and you said that post Fergie, and correct me if I'm paraphrasing this wrong, but you said this is like the Woodward era.
Yeah.
I think you termed it. Post Fergie, it's been more like the Woodward era because you've had all these different managers, and it's been more like the Woodward era. Do you think this will be looked at as the Ratcliffe era, or do you think it'd be more the Amorim era?
Ooh, I think if there's success on the pitch, it'll be Amorim's. Yeah. If it's basically the bumps and roller coaster, it'll be Ratcliffe. And I think that's fair enough. Really, I think the manager, because they're trying to sort it out structurally. We mentioned these couple of big decisions. If these sort of don't work, or if it doesn't work, then I think everyone will look at them and say, well, what did he ever know about football anyway, Ratcliffe? You can't have transferable skills with regard to Brailsford coming from cycling, and look at what they did. It's Nice they have, isn't it?
Nice, yeah.
So I think that's how it'll work. I mean, basically, listen, if he wins the league title, which I know is a big if, but if he does, then that's massive, right? Not just because it's the league title, but it'd be the first one since Ferguson after 10, 12, maybe 15 years of, let's say, flatlining. I'm being polite.
No, you are.
So it's absolutely massive. I mean, it really is. So it'll definitely be Amorim's, and he'll be a folk hero, won't he?
For you,
and rightly so. Whatever he does, then that's it. He'll walk on water, never have to buy a drink, all the rest of it. Again, from Reds, and he'll deserve that because winning the title is the one. And I was going to say earlier, I like the fact that he's referencing the title very early, one of the Premier League title. I think that's good. Yeah. I think he's very interesting character. I was told a little bit about him. He had quite a difficult childhood upbringing. You know what I mean? And he's come through all that. Obviously played for Portugal. He's still only 39, but he's got this sort of like this lightness about him, which I think is refreshing, knowing the way in which he is. I'd like him to succeed. I just want to see. So far, this 3-4-3 hasn't really looked like that. I thought the 3-4-3 would, which is good. I thought it was going to be quite a sort of like defensive or negative approach, but it seems to be quite interesting, bright, quite attacking. So, so far so good. But as I say, I've been stung so many times.
Yeah, you're not alone. And I do feel, and I've said this before, and I've said it to you a few times, this is different. And I know I've said that. I said it. I think the first time you spoke about it, I said it about Van Gaal. After Moyes, I think I said to you, this feels different. But...
the difference now, though, is the Ineos thing, right?
Yeah, that's it. You've got the Ineos thing there. And also, you've got a coach who certainly... In terms of, like you say, that his charisma, the way he comes across, I don't think there's many that have been as sort of, I don't know what the right word, charismatic might be.
Yeah.
I know Jose had a lot of that when he first arrived, especially by the end it had all been eroded away.
I just found it very interesting when it was said to me, the view is that other managers have tried to sort this out, but there was no alignment. And I thought that basically says the Glazer thing.
Yeah.
And already, if you're a fan, you want to be hearing that, right? Because basically 100%. The new lot have come in, Ratcliffe and that. I'm thinking, the Glazer have been at half, or if not the problem, in terms of the sort of like, let's say, apathetic ownership. And again, I'm being polite. They're not, as long as the bottom line's been there. They have spent a lot of money in the transfer market, all the rest of it, but there's never been a ruthless sort of like, what flipping X going on. We haven't won the title. Let's do something about it. So I think that's a good sign.
Just a few more questions before I let you go. Harry Maguire.
Yes.
What's the latest with him? Is it because there's?
Yeah. So
I know you've been sort of looking at this.
Yeah. So he seems to be thinking he's going to sign a new. I mean, they've got an extension or an option after this season, but he seems talks are ongoing, and he's 31. I can't decide whether it's a good thing if they keep him on, but he hasn't looked bad. He looked good. But again, I still think it's quite a small sample size with this 3 at the back thing. So yeah, he seems to think he will get another deal. It's usually just another year, isn't it, when they're in the 30s? I don't know whether you think that's good.
I like Harry Maguire. I think some of the stick. I mean, look, I'm not going to rewrite history. There's been times when Harry Maguire's probably not been at levels that he should have been. There's been times when I thought his career at United was done.
Well, yeah, I think it as well.
Yeah, I thought at one point it looked like he was going to go. Was it West Ham he was linked with quite heavily a couple of summers ago? But I do think he gets undue stick. I do think there's a player still there. Yeah. And I do think we've seen it. Yeah. We've seen it, and especially in the back three, we saw it for England. In the back three, we saw it, I think, at Leicester. I think he might have been in the back three. Yeah. And just his performances. Yeah,
and listen, his attitude.
Yeah,
is there.
He doesn't. It's got to be horrible. That to have the captaincy took off.
Yeah.
An £80 million defender. It's not his fault. We overpaid because we did overpay. That's not his fault. But you lose your place in the team. A new manager comes in, and you lose the captaincy. It's not easy that. Plus some of the social media stuff, the abuse he's had, and then England fans giving him grief, which just doesn't compute. A player who's been one of the most successful defenders England have ever had.
Type of fans.
Yeah, and he's getting absolute pellers. Not helped himself a couple of times, fingers in the ears and all that nonsense. But on the whole, I think he is a good player. He seems like a decent bloke, and my only slight concern I don't mind Harry Maguire staying next season. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I just hope United don't do what we did with Matic, where it's like, it's a 3-year deal or whatever.
I don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
If that happens, then get me back on, and I'll be giving a slating.
But I don't mind him staying, at least one more year, maybe 2 or whatever. That makes sense to me. He certainly looks like he's got a little bit more left in the tank. So,
defo.
I wouldn't mind.
He's only 31.
Yeah.
The way he plays, it's not like he relies on his
winger, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, or even a fullback. Just quickly before you go, then you've been at the Man City press conference.
I have today.
So are the walls crumbling at the Etihad? Is the roof caving in? Has Pep Guardiola lost his marbles, and is it all? This is the end of an era. Is that what you're going to tell me?
No, not quite that. What I would say is he looked an almost broken man in the room after you beat him at their place on Sunday. Today, he was obviously had 5 days since then, or whatever it is, 5-6 days. He looked a bit more composed. He still seems up for it. But the stark fact is, and it is surreal that it's not weird that they've lost a few. Anyone could do that, but to lose 8 from 11 and only win 1 is ridiculous. That's right, that's ridiculous. So, and I think he is a man who is slightly befuddled by what the heck is going on here, because towards the start of this, we all know the Rodri thing, there was sort of centre backs out, but recently he's been able to put out pretty decent teams, and if you look at the bench, which is also the way of sort of gauging it, strong as well. But what the heck is going on? Now that Sunday, that derby thing, you just wanted it more. Diallo, and actually just to link it back to Rashford, that's what Amorim saying. Seeing Diallo is absolutely gagging to get out there and make stuff happen. He won that for you, right? He made something out of nothing, right?
100%.
Just like the goal he got, small stuff. I mean, flipping out. And you know what's clever about that? He didn't try and tackle him. He came across
Blocked him,
so he wasn't going to be given for a foul. So there is, and he's basically the example of what United, So to go back to Guardiola, Villa tomorrow. What is it? It's a 12:30 game. They could lose it, you know what I mean? And then it's like you're looking at 9 defeats out of 12. I mean, I actually asked him point blank after the derby on Sunday, are you, because he just lost, they just lost. Are you starting to think maybe I can't turn this round? Which is quite, as if like you might have to go. It's quite a blunt way and he just sort of said, "Well, I want to. I'm here for it." But he wasn't angry or tetchy. He was almost like resigned to, this is the stage I'm at. Like where So that's something that needs to happen. I mean, I would guess if he wants to, he ain't going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's not like... there is a scenario where they might not qualify for the Champions League, the top 24.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
This system in which everyone can qualify, you and I can qualify to the next round of the Champions League. You know what I mean? But there is a possibility. I know they've got Club Brugge, but they've got this PSG game, right, which is away. But what I'm trying to say is, even if they miss out on that, I don't think he's going anywhere. He's not going to be sacked, right? They just won't sack him.
He could lose every game from now to
I think he's earned that, to be honest. If I'm, I know you don't want to hear that. I get that.
I get it.
Yeah. So
they say no one's bigger than the club, but that's a small little club. And he's a big character, so I get it.
So this is very interesting because they're doing really, really badly. I haven't seen all of the away games, but I've seen the Sporting one where he got tanked 4-0 by Ruben.
4-1.
Sorry, 4-1, and the Juve defeat. I was at that last week away. So I've seen most of this run, and it's like
it's bizarre, isn't it?
Bizarre is the word. Surreal is the word I'm using in the match report. Surreal. Right, what is going on?
We've seen obviously United after Fergie left, we were the defending champions, and we fell off a bit of a cliff under Moyes. But that was a new manager.
100%. This is the guy who's got it all in place. I think there's been 2 or 3 massive mistakes. They got about 80 million or 81 million for Alvarez. Didn't replace him. They've got a massive pot of money on which to draw.
Yeah, 75 million profit.
I was told today that total they've got a pot basically equal to United's debt, about $500 million
must be big.
That they could spend, right? So that was a mistake, not replacing Alvarez. Didn't necessarily have to be with another striker, but another body.
It's weird as well. I don't want to go bogged down in it. Just before we wrap up. Well, you look at someone like Jack Grealish not scored for 45 games.
Well, it's now a year to the day.
Yeah,
I know.
Phil Foden's not scored in the Premier League. And these aren't 35-year-olds.
Madness, isn't it?
These are young lads, or
what has happened? Yeah,
players who've still got obviously something left in him, and they've just almost fell off a bit of a cliff. And you're like, I saw Foden in the derby, we all did, and he's still a player. You can see he nearly scored. You know what I mean? It was like a couple of moments where you thought, crikey, he's going to get.
He has had injuries, but
it's all so odd, and I don't think you can all put it down to Rodri. You're losing one player, I get it, but you've still got a lot of players there.
Another massive thing, which we've never really drilled into, is why did they allow Palmer to leave, Cole Palmer? Now, I've got to be honest, I thought they had Chelsea's pants down at the time for that 45 million, but that shows what I know, because look at him. But, there was a ready-made...
Maybe they just thought... I don't know the full ins and outs of it, you'll know. But
he's a United fan, isn't he?
Yeah, there was rumours that he didn't want to wait around.
Maybe that's the truth, but...
And maybe they thought...
Yes.
Look, we're not exactly struggling. I think when he left, they just won the treble.
Yeah, that's right.
So they probably thought we can afford to lose a kid.
It was interesting. Just before he did leave that season, he scored in the Super Cup win, European one. I did that game in Greece. I can't remember who they played. And then he also scored at the Community Shield. So even with his limited opportunity, anyway, to go back,
it's one of those as well, Jay. I think sometimes I remember I used to do podcasts with City fan. He used to go on about Cole Palmer all the time.
Right.
But I think. But we've heard this before.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't realise at the time that he was.
Sure.
That
of course, because you do.
Do you know what I mean?
100%. A bit like Greenwood. I used to hear about Greenwood coming through. Come on, how good is he? But
when Sancho was at City, you swear it. I remember it was Ibrahim Diaz was at City.
Yeah.
Some of them are obviously. Doyle when he was at City, it's this is going to be the next. Yeah. But with Palmer, he is. So you're right. It is a bit of a strange.
Do you think he'll go to United one day? I
hope so. I'd love it. Do you know what? I get stick on
tomorrow. How much is he?
If you bought Cole Palmer tomorrow,
150. 120.
It's a straight swap for Marcus Rashford, isn't it? the comments now will be going berserk. Jay's lost it. I think if Chelsea were to sell him, he would be over 100 mil. He would, because he's young. He scores loads of goals. And he's that profile.
He's a cool cucumber, isn't he?
He does. I mean, it's borderline. He acts like he doesn't even know where he is at times. He's that cool. I don't know if that's.
I always said that's one of Beckham's best things.
Yeah,
he's just so didn't
phased by it. You don't think he knows what's going on.
I know,
that's how unfazed he is. He's from Windsor as well, isn't he?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, all the best
that
people.
Hotbed,
all the best people.
There?
No, my kids were born in there. They're not from there, right? They were born in Wivenshaw Hospital, right? And when it was a big deal was made, and Marcus be like, lad from Wivenshaw, my kids are always like, we're from Wivenshaw. Like, you're not. You're from Eccles, but if you are from without, you can do. Jamie, it's always a pleasure.
More mine.
No, stop.
More mine. Come on.
We'll catch up again soon, man, because we love having you on the channel. It's always
definitely. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, big Merry Christmas.
Drink loads of sherry.
Yes, I hope you have a good New Year as well. That's been Jamie Jackson from The Guardian. Go and check him out. This has been Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.